Okay, let's jump right into this explainer and ask a pretty radical question. What if literally everything you've ever been taught about your past trauma, your personality, and your emotional baggage is just completely wrong? Like, what if the entire idea that your past dictates your future is nothing more than a convenient excuse? Today, we're unpacking a concept that is going to absolutely shatter the way you view your own life, your struggles, and your real potential for happiness. We're digging into the core ideas from a massive phenomenon called the courage to be disliked. And when I first looked into the source material, I was totally blown away by how it's structured. It actually unfolds as a really compelling Socratic dialogue between a highly cynical youth and a very wise philosopher. Through their back and forth, it challenges some of our most deeply held beliefs about human psychology, exposing ideas that feel completely counterintuitive at first, but honestly, they are incredibly empowering once you wrap your head around them. So here is our agenda for today. We are going to systematically bust some massive psychological myths. We'll hit 1. The third giant of psychology. 2. Why trauma does not exist. 3. Your emotions are just tools. 4. You chose your unhappiness. And 5. The courage to change. Let's get to it. Starting right off with Section 1, the third giant of psychology. To really grasp where these disruptive ideas come from, we have to look past the usual suspects. I mean, you definitely know Sigmund Freud, and you probably know Carl Jung, but Alfred Adler? He's often referred to as the unknown third giant of psychology. He was an Austrian psychiatrist who actually split from Freud's circle to form his own entirely original theories. And what's wild is that Adler's ideas were arguably a full century ahead of their time. They ended up heavily influencing massive self-help legends, people like Dale Carnegie and Stephen Covey. Adlerian psychology doesn't just study human behavior, it actually offers a direct philosophical roadmap to being happy. Moving on to Section 2, and brace yourself, because this is where things get wild. Why trauma does not exist. Let's step right into one of Adler's boldest, most controversial claims. Conventional psychology relies heavily on a concept called etiology. Basically, etiology argues that all of our present problems have past causes. It's that classic Freudian determinism. So for example, if someone absolutely refuses to leave their bedroom and suffers from severe panic attacks, etiology says, well, it must be because of a past trauma, a terrible upbringing or childhood abuse. It fundamentally says your past completely controls your present. But Adler completely flips this on its head with a totally different theory called teleology. Teleology is the study of the purpose of a phenomenon rather than its cause. So instead of believing that past causes control us, teleology argues that present goals drive us. Under Adler's theory, that recluse didn't become a shut-in because of past trauma. No, they actually create their anxiety and fear right now in the present moment as a highly effective tool to achieve their subconscious goal of never going outside. The goal comes first, and the psychological symptom is just the means they use to achieve it. The crucial point here is captured beautifully in this quote from Adler. He said, "No experience is in itself a cause of our success or failure." He is arguing that we do not suffer from the shock of our experiences, which was what we typically call trauma. Instead, we make out of those experiences whatever suits our present purposes. You are not determined by your past experiences, but rather by the meaning you actively choose to give them. That is a massive, game-changing shift from being a passive victim of your past to an active creator of your current reality. Which brings us nicely to Section 3, your emotions are just tools. Okay, so if our past doesn't control us, what about those sudden, overwhelming emotions? Picture this. You're at a cafe and a waiter spills hot coffee all over your brand new jacket. You immediately fly into a rage, right? Afterward, you'd probably justify it by saying, I couldn't help it, the anger just took over. But Adlerian psychology says something entirely different. You didn't lose control to anger. Rather, your subconscious goal in that split second was to make the waiter submit to you, to dominate them. And to achieve that goal, you instantly manufactured anger as a cheap, lightning-fast tool to force their submission by yelling. You literally fabricated the emotion to suit your immediate purpose. If you're sitting there thinking, no way, that's impossible, imagine a mother yelling at her teenage daughter in a totally uncontrollable rage. Suddenly, the phone rings. She picks it up, and it's the daughter's homeroom teacher. In a fraction of a second, the mother completely drops the rage and switches to a perfectly polite, pleasant telephone voice. She chats nicely for 5 minutes, says goodbye, hangs up, and instantly goes right back to screaming at her daughter. This totally proves that emotions aren't these unstoppable demonic forces that possess us. They're just highly controllable tools. We pack them away when it's convenient, and we whip them right back out when we need to assert power. All right, part 4. And this is a tough pill to swallow. You chose your unhappiness. Think about it. If we manufacture our own emotions to achieve our goals, this leads us to a very uncomfortable truth about our overall happiness. The source material taps into some ancient wisdom to explain modern misery, specifically the Socratic paradox, which states, "No one desires evil." Now, in Greek philosophy, evil doesn't mean comic book villain evil. It just means not beneficial, while good means beneficial. Even the most hardened criminals have internal justifications for what they do, meaning human beings only ever choose things they internally believe are beneficial to them in some way. We never purposefully choose a state that offers us absolutely zero benefit. Because of this, Adler makes a staggering claim. If you are deeply unhappy right now, it is not because you were born under a bad star. It's not because you're a helpless victim of circumstance. It's because at some point in your life, you, consciously or subconsciously, judged that being unhappy was actually beneficial and safe for you. Maybe being miserable protects you from having to try something hard and risk failing. Maybe it gets you pity or special attention from your friends and family. Whatever that twisted internal justification is, you actually chose it. To break this down a bit more, Adler entirely discards rigid labels like personality or disposition. He throws them out. Instead, he uses the concept of a lifestyle. Your lifestyle is basically your tendency of thought and action. It is simply how you see the world and yourself. And here is the absolute kicker. Adlerian psychology believes you unconsciously chose this exact lifestyle right around the age of 10. You were not born with it, and because it's just something you chose back then, it means it can absolutely be rechosen or unchosen today. Let's wrap it all up with Section 5, the courage to change. So, if we genuinely hold the power to choose a brand new lifestyle at literally any moment, and we can drop our unhappiness whenever we feel like it, why in the world do we feel so incredibly stuck? The explainer uses this brilliant example of an aspiring novelist. This person constantly talks about dreaming of writing a book, but they claim their day job keeps them way too busy to ever actually finish a manuscript. Adler would look at that and say, that's just an excuse. The novelist is purposefully avoiding finishing the book to keep the possibility of success alive. If they never finish it, they can always tell themselves, I could be a great writer if I just had the time. What they're doing is protecting themselves from the harsh reality of potential rejection. They don't lack time at all, they lack courage. And look, this is the internal tug of war we all face, the terrifying anxiety of changing versus the familiar disappointment of not changing. We persistently decide not to change because driving the familiar, rattling car of our current self just feels so much safer. Even if that car is a busted-up '98 sedan with a broken AC, at least we know how it handles. Sure, it's disappointing to be unhappy, but hey, it's predictable. Stepping into a brand new lifestyle means stepping into the vast, totally unknown anxiety of a new path, where you can't predict what's going to happen. So we naturally choose the comfort of our misery over the absolute terror of the unknown. So here is the very core of Adler's entire philosophy. Adlerian psychology is not a psychology of competence. It is a psychology of courage. The highly empowering, if somewhat harsh, reality is that you are not lacking in capability. You just aren't. You are not permanently ruined by your past environment or by your traumas. You simply lack the courage to abandon your old, familiar self. Which brings us to the ultimate realization. According to Adler, your life is not written in stone by your past. It is decided here and now by the exact choices you make today. So I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought as we wrap up this explainer. You have the power to choose a completely new lifestyle right this very second. The only real question left is, are you finally ready to drop the excuses, face the unknown, and find the courage to be happy?